Okay, so hello everyone. It's 6:34. So can we start the meeting?
You are the boss.
Thank you. Shane, would you like to show the antitrust policy or I'm opening?
I'm just pulling it up. 1 second, please. Should be showing now. There you are. So as usual, we have the policy on the website, and we also have a council to ask questions of if you have any comments, questions, or concerns around the antitrust policy notice. And that is it in terms of the notice we display at the beginning of every meeting.
Okay, thank you, Shane. So firstly, before we start with today's meeting, I would like to apologize to everyone because by today I should have had an Excel sheet uploaded to OpenChain curriculum GitHub repository where all the modularized content was supposed to be there. But since we have a policy amendment in our organization regarding OSS contribution and OSS compliance, I'm little uh, I'm a little on the backlog part with getting approvals for my latest contribution. So I have the document ready, but I cannot contribute it until end of this week probably. So I'm very sorry about that, and I cannot even present it here because it would still count as a contribution. But I have the topic ready here. There are totally 10 topics in OpenChain curriculum, the 2.0 version, and in the 10 major topics, each topic plus or minus one or two, each topic has 5 subtopics. So this is how the modularized content has been recorded in an Excel sheet. And with respect to these, we can, once we have the Excel sheet on the GitHub, we can select our strong suits for enhancing the explanation within the OpenChain content that is already present, or to pick the additional content from Linux Foundation courses and combine them with the modularized content. Meanwhile, I also was making the same content list with the Linux Foundation content, with the content what I have. I have not downloaded from the website yet. So there again, I was creating a modularized content sheet, and when I have this Excel sheet, what I have prepared, uploaded onto GitHub, I'll try to put up a match table wherein which contents are similar and which contents are not similar, so that it would be easier for us to understand what topics we can club and what topics we might have to modify a little to club together. So this much will be ready by the time I get an approval for uploading the content, and then we have everything ready.
I suppose one question.
Any queries? Yes, Shane.
Alongside the existing material that you're working on right now, I was just wondering if anyone else on the line might have material from recent or ongoing or past OpenChain conformance. Just thinking along the lines of checklists or other materials like that.
Shane, it's Sami. I mean, we kept it sort of to fairly basic 4 modules, and probably a couple of those modules would be more specific to OpenChain. What we have done within ARM is we decided, given that this was about raising awareness around IP, including open source, we decided to sort of go a bit more generic and included, for example, a module on patents. So I'm happy to share the names of the modules. Let me just try and see if I can bring our learning portal. Just bear with me for 1 second and see if I can share my screen. unfortunately, we can't donate the specific material. As you know, our material is based on what we've donated previously, but we had to tweak
Yes.
it to make it online. So let me just see if I can.
Incidentally, while Sammy's doing that, I don't know if anyone noticed, but Google went down in the Americas and in Japan for a while back.
It has, and it caused a bit of havoc. I thought
Yes.
I'm trying to join a Google Meet meeting, and I thought it was due to my incompetence in joining the meeting before I realized, no, it was down.
And it has taken the social media by storm.
Yeah. So
I was in the middle of getting emails and activities on the infrastructure ready for the PR, and suddenly everything stopped working. And I was like, oh no, oh no.
Oh.
So can you see my screen?
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
So we divided into 4 small modules. One is just a general introduction to intellectual property law. And again, that's about 30 minutes. And then a more specific introduction to open source software and licenses that sort of goes into details of the software and some of the licenses and some of the incompatibility issues. Then we had a specific module which talks about the processes that we use within ARM and where to go and the tools that we use. So I think these 3 modules were specifically OpenChain. The patent is more around filing for patents for inventions within ARM and what we need to do and what our engineers and developers need to do and who they need to contact. So I would say that's less specific to OpenChain.
So
we still called it.
Sorry, Sami. So your patents stuff is the processes about patents, right?
That's correct. That's
the information on patents is in the general intellectual property.
Correct. This is more around how to file for patents and what engineers need to do to where to go and how to apply for inventions. So but you're right. In the introduction to intellectual property, you cover all aspects of IP, whether it is patents, whether it's trademarks, whether it is copyright. We cover all trade secrets, but whatever, we cover all of those. So this is your basic 101 IP law module, whereas this is more specific about how ARM operates and what our engineers need to be aware of when they want to file for a new invention and how the process works within ARM. So I would say these 3 modules, the top 3 modules, are more specific and more relevant to OpenChain, and all of these 3 modules were built using the original material that we donated. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does indeed. Tons of sense. Very useful. Thanks, Sammy.
That's very
this
cool,
kind of
but
made me think, maybe a little bit even broader about the Linux Foundation trainings, because it seems that there's quite some overlap between the OpenChain and then basically the generic open source licensing training, etc. So do you think that it could be possible to make all of these, let's say 5 or whatever number of modules we have, in such way that basically they can be interchangeable between different trainings or training tracks, basically, and then can maybe make it more modular, and then you update one of these modules, then let's say another track gets updated as well.
Yeah, I mean, we had the discussion previously about who needs to attend, and I think Andrew Katz has a good sort of spreadsheet about what the requirements are for the individual types of employees and with their responsibilities. We have taken a different approach to that because, for example, even our lawyers do the introduction to intellectual property law, because our view is that actually our lawyers need to understand what the developers have been told about the IP. So while I think, yes, it is useful to think of it from a job description perspective, you're right. You know, for one stream, you might say, actually, for lawyers, they really need to complete all of them because we would like them to understand. And you can make sure that you highlight that actually this is normally what this stream or track of people have to do. So you can make it that way rather than say you have to do it because this is required for your own personal training. But yeah, we took the approach. I mean, we communicated to our legal team, for example, and our licensing team, who all of this is very basic for them, and they already had those qualifications. But we said, well, you hold this responsibility. You need to make sure that when you're talking to the developers, if they come to you for guidance, to understand where they're coming from. So therefore, you should complete it.
Yeah. Because then, I was trying even think like even larger, like, the whole Linux Foundation training, I don't know, the platform, if it supports such thing that each of, let's say, these tracks are put together kind of as it is, or so that it's not totally fixed to that, okay, you do this training, but then there's like, you can have, let's say, some central repository where these, let's say, different modules are then pulled to the training, according to the, let's say, training track or whatever it is, so that I don't know, somebody might read more about the IP and the licensing.
Yeah.
Maybe some other training would be, a little bit different setup of the modules.
It would be more like a connected dots, whichever is necessary for you. You just pick those with respect to your roles.
Yeah. Okay.
Yes.
I mean, I think to be honest with you, once we have the spreadsheet from you, Krishna, it is easy to have a starting point, and then you say, well, actually, for this type of role, we might need to have an add-on, for example, or actually the type of information that they need needs to be much deeper than that. So perhaps they have to do this module and a superset of this module. There are different ways. I think the starting point we should have, right, let's create these modules with the very baseline, I would call it. And then from that one, you can then sort of say, right, we might need additional information here for this type of role. How best is that done? Is it a separate additional module, or do we want to have a sort of a larger module or a deeper understanding module that if you're on this track, you don't need to do the basic one, you need to do the advanced one. And certainly some of the information would be shared between these modules. But personally, my approach to get somewhere, we should just sort of start with the baseline, basic module on all of the identified topics, and then you can mix and match whether you match modules or not.
Then we can go on providing additional recommendations based on the rules and information required. That sounds perfect. But Sammy, I have one query with respect to the screen you're presenting here. So I see that all the trainings are 30 minutes. So they are self-read trainings, is it, or they are voiceover trainings?
No, they are. We did a survey before we did the training and asked, actually, the majority of our groups were developers. So we asked them what is their preference, and the message that we had back was, no voice, please. We don't want any voice. We want it to be interactive, but no voice. I just wonder whether I can actually start this one. Just bear with me for a second. But yeah, so it was definitely no voice. That was the preference from our developers. They they wanted to be able to do other things while they're doing it. And the key thing that we did was that we had to have, so you can see you have to click to go to the next one. And again, this is just a little quiz. They have to click and see who's right, what they've done. And you see, so it tells you straight away, and it gives you a little bit more. So that was the preference, and we did this throughout the training. They just have to click and go through it, and then at the I think let me just go a little bit further on, because there is another bit that is probably, so throughout we do a little bit of testing on the material, but we also have a quiz at the end that they have to pass.
This looks really beautiful.
Yeah, we did use an external company. We created, myself and our open source patent attorney created the original material in PowerPoint, which was quite shoddy, but at least it contained all the information. And then we actually asked an external supplier to convert it into an online, and we told them what we wanted. And then we had obviously several iterations, them sending us back the material to. Okay. And again, I think I have quite a lot of ideas as to how we can accomplish this. What you need to do is really just to make it as easy as possible for people to follow, and it flows nicely across.
Definitely. Yeah.
That looks very similar to our approach.
And then congrats to Sami, you know.
Yeah.
You
so
completed.
Can you hear me?
Yes, Marcel.
Yeah. So I can also share a little bit. So
yeah.
then you will see the similarities a little bit. one second. And I think this is potentially based on the fact that ARM shared this material. we based that on.
That was the whole point. I think the effort that we've put in after that is more converting it into an online, and we wanted to ensure that all of our 5,000 employees are certified and have completed the full training, and all new starters are assigned the training. So we definitely wanted to make sure that we keep track of who has done the training. That's why we decided to go online.
Yeah, this is also the flexibility that was appreciated by most of our developers, who said we don't want to have this on a strict date or something. We would be more flexible and doing it offline. And what we did is also concerning this request there to be more modular, is we also had one consultant here internally where we went through those parts of the current curriculum material, and we tried to find out some topic areas. So where we said, okay, this is for everyone, like the fundamentals. Then we sorted it by usage and so on. And for each of those subsections, we made some more smaller parts out of it. So this is, the material is the same, but we cut it down to smaller portions. Also because of this consultants who said, okay, it should not be a big monolithic approach, but it's easier to consume if it's only a small thing. And so we try to get between 5 and 10 minutes for each of those blocks. So and this is the fundamentals part. It's 100% OpenChain, you could say, because this is not Bosch specific or something. Whereas the other sections, usage, management, handling, contribution, this is also a lot of community material, but it's because you need then also your specific processes to make it valuable for the people, then much more also yeah, customize to our parts. And then the second step that we did is that we said, okay, now that we have those smaller portions, that we had the list of roles, where we said, okay, now we can go through each of those, we called it snacks, because it's just the snack that you can consume. And then here also where you see, okay, recommended or mandatory, stuff like that. And as you can see here, everything is only merely recommended, because our approach, and this is also very similar to what Sami said, showed, is that we didn't so we have some quizzes at the end, but these are really tiny, tiny, small quizzes. For the real assessment, we put the assessment extra. So we have an extra assessment for the whole thing. We said, okay, that's like kind of a driving license, you could say. So now you can use all this material to train yourself. But if you already have that knowledge, and we had also a broad range of experienced people, then we say you don't have to go through all those 30-minute sessions again and again. But if you think you already know it, you can directly start the assessment and click through it. And then in the assessments, we gave feedback in case, well, you missed something or were not successful. Then we hinted back to, look, you should potentially repeat one of those snacks where it's explained about license management and intellectual property, all this stuff, so that someone could go back and then repeat the assessment again. So to also give here the flexibility, not only when you want to do it, but also that you can choose the extent, where you said, okay, I'm a complete rookie, I need the whole thing. Then you can also have, so here, based on these recommendations, we made some introductory training based on the contents, so that we could now, as this is modular, we could rearrange to different sets of trainings. And so if you would be a developer, for example, then you could say, okay, I go through all those trainings or those snacks one after another. And once I'm done, I do the assessment, or I'm already, I don't know, open source developer since years. I joined the company, and then I say, well, at least I have to do those specifics here. I think it's here usage at INST, that was used to be our department name. So where you can say, okay, how does this work at this specific department? And this is also within Bosch, I guess, different from one area to another, so that you have a common core kind of for each of those sections, but then you have also some subsections that are rather unit specific at that point. And how I tried to, because that was really a challenge, to see, okay, which role needs what training, and that's the way we try to find the correct fit. This is that. I don't know if I already, if I repeat myself, but I think I showed that already, so that we said, okay, this role is in specific processes in our quality management system. And within those processes, it will meet specific use cases. And then as an open source officer, I said, okay, what do I want this person to know at explicitly that point? So for example, a developer is in the internet and tries to choose a new component. Yeah, then I think, okay, he should know about this. And this is the question that I asked him then virtually, to this role. In this case, you should know this and this and this. So this was the starting point. And this is also now was entering then the assessments as the skill checks. We also use those questions also in the quizzes, but then in the assessments that we do. And then the second question is, so if the person does not know, how should he know? Yeah, so I also needed this training material, as I call it, as I already said, this we called snacks. So for each of those questions I had, then I made this mapping. Okay, which of those material will answer those questions. And while having this exercise, I also recognized, okay, there should be an FAQ some kind. And also we have some offline material in our wiki. So this is the process I ran through. And this is also what I really appreciated now with the material from OpenChain, because we didn't need to invent all this stuff, but it was all there. We just needed to cut it a little bit more smaller pieces to be more modular. And then the other challenge was to keep track with the changes. And to be honest, Alexis was very, very good at that time when we started. And the material some months later was updated again, so we really hurried after it. And this was also then a challenge to make that fit with Git and everything, so that you have always the newest stuff. Yeah, so this is I think the experience we had here. And the second point then with this, and this is exactly similar to what Sami just showed, is for those fundamentals at least, where we said, okay, this will not change that often because the basics are the basics. Then we also started to generate those web-based stuff, but with sound, to be honest. But as this is the tool that we used here internally that was there, it's a robot voice. So you just have the text and the robot voice that is talking the text, because the actors that you need to record the sounds, it's very expensive. And so we said, okay, we will keep here the robot voice, but there we get a lot of feedback that we shouldn't have done this. So I agree to this. No, sound would have been better.
So
also this.
It was interesting when we did our training, we had another compliance program, sort of about personal data, etc. And that was done with voice and with and it really annoyed a huge number of developers within the organization. So the survey was very clear that no, we don't want any audio. We just want to get on with it and do it. And also, I think one of the influencing factors is that we have open plan offices, and that was another factor. People sort of said, even if you have your headset, sometimes that causes distraction to other people. So again, there were multiple reasons why people didn't want the audio. Again, organization to organization and culture to culture differs. Some places people sort of prefer to have audio, others don't. The key thing is that you have to have that basic material as your starting point. The other thing I wanted to just say, the more variants of the same modules you have, the more problematic the maintenance becomes, because again, you have to remember that if something changes and you want to update, you will then end up having to update multiple versions of the similar training material. So I like your way of sort of saying, okay, so the fundamentals are ones that we're not likely to change. The more advanced ones, when it changes, we need to go and change those.
Yeah, exactly. And then I think also at some points, if the target group is rather small and you have this potentially high change rate, I would rather prefer then also to do the one-on-one training, because then you're much more flexible. But those things here, we say, okay, this will potentially not change for the next few years. Then it's worth to invest, to say, okay, I make this electronic and I have a few thousand people running through that and do it. Yeah, I think, and therefore, and this was my starting point at that time, where I said, okay, this is not Bosch specific. Yeah, so that was not even unit specific, not even Bosch specific. So why not share this? And therefore, I appreciate now that we have this community here to say, okay, could we do this together? But who should host this material? But we would need to come to the same understanding of what is fundamental and what would be a benefit for all of us to just use that. And here, this is what also Hans and Bala, I think, mentioned, that if that would be available from the Linux Foundation, for example, from the Linux Academy, so I would just exchange that link to the Linux Academy, and then rather invest my time there or in the curriculum here. When I know, okay, the changes from the curriculum will also be updated in the final electronic web-based training or whatever webinar, because this is exactly the point where I was asking then a few months ago, well, where's the connection between the material that we collaboratively working on and the stuff that is later shown in the material that we offer to our developers and all our staff. So that was my main point where I thought, okay, it would be nice to come together and discuss about this also together with the Linux Training Academy. Yep, so that's it from my side. And as you see, we have some heavy similarities there between the companies, and it's not really differentiating, I would say. Yeah.
No,
the exciting. Sorry. I was just going to say the exciting thing will be that when we get this new course ready under CC and we have it up on edX, we'll immediately have an audience of 35 million potential learners, plus all the companies able to redirect anyone to edX to have a look, or indeed just take the material and put it in their own platform.
Yeah, that would be great, because we're tracking. Yep. I guess ARM is also doing this. So every employee has this learning history, and if this can be solved between those systems, that would be really great. Yeah.
Yes, thank you, Marcel, for showing that, and especially the sheet what you had made with respect to each role. That's one point which we had discussed during our previous meetings, where. So right now you have the you have the table with respect to different roles, and there you have mentioned which of the topics would be required for each different role. So using the same technique and the same chart, if we can also figure out what more enhancements could be done to those individual topics based on those roles, as per our continuous discussion from past weeks, that would also add value on, and as how ARM has done, or your team has done with respect to the trainings, making it more interactive. If we have it that way in edX, I think we are done and we can just start using it. But Marshall, one question for you here. Was the role of legal considered anywhere in this training split?
No. No. The legal, yeah, I think it's the same as Sami said, but we didn't. Yeah, we have this original trainings, the big ones that our legals perform here internally, potentially. So this is already a consolidation of different topics that are in the legal portion.
Yeah, no. So my question was, with the OpenChain content what we have, is there anything very specifically which we would want to segregate for legal team, so that they understand with respect to OpenChain content what we have, or the Linux Foundation content what we have, this is what exactly has to be communicated to the legal team. That would be beneficial for them also to understand that we are adhering to OpenChain references, and how exactly it makes sense for us to consider OpenChain trainings or the Linux Foundation trainings as official training, right?
I mean, I don't think that we have had any specific training for our legal team, but as I said, we actually asked the legal team to complete all the training because we wanted them to understand what the developers have been told. The only area that I still think that there would be company-specific modules when you, for example, sometimes you have the issue of incompatibility between licenses. Different legal teams and different companies have different interpretations, and you can't really have a Linux Foundation sort of legal training module because again, that would be construed as giving legal advice. So there are complications there. I don't think we should try and address how a lawyer should interpret licenses, or I think it should be just the basics that there could be conflicts between licenses, There could be other forms of incompatibilities. In general, for example, with compliance, with copyright notices and licenses, this is what you would expect to do, and then leave it up to the organization to sort of say, well, actually, whether GPL is compatible with this license or not. That's something up to the organization itself to decide.
Yes, Abby. I was just taking it to the same track, not to make it a legal advice or a legal compliance course, but they need to be aware that what is coming, like how you have done in ARM, they need to be aware what is coming from OpenChain and what is being consumed from OpenChain and Linux Foundation. That's it.
Just to add what Sami just said, that basically there's one thing that's legal, then there's another thing what's the company policy, and normally the policies are a little bit more strict than what the legal requirement is.
Yes. So when I'm uploading the next week's sheet, I'll try to get in touch with Marcel and see if I can borrow their table as well, and we'll see if we can club them. Probably that would be a good addition to the Excel sheet, which is going to come up this week.
Yes, as perhaps one hint from my side is internal check if I'm on the right track. I always try to keep it in a way that I thought, okay, I do it now for my company, but as you might know, that we are heavily involved also with the Eclipse Foundation and also driving projects there. I always had in a second opinion in my mind. I said, okay, it should also fit to employees or developers in the Eclipse Foundation or Apache Foundation or Linux Foundation, so that I could really be generic. They say, okay, what is now Bosch specific or Bosch IO specific? What is that? How on that level that I could use the material and also use it at one of those foundations that are independent from any company. And I think that was a good help, to say, okay, if I could share this material with those open non-profit organizations, etc., then I think then I thought I'm on the right track, just as a hint. Yeah.
Yes.
I mean, Marcel, this is exactly what triggered the donation of the training materials. I think I mentioned it before. Having discussions with other companies and saying, well, this is what we do, and I bet you there is nothing that I'm telling my developer that you're not telling your developers, and immediately it became very obvious. I mean, Alexis would remember this. Once we've donated our material and Qualcomm donated their material, there was huge number of similarities in the content.
Yes, of course.
and suddenly people realize, well, actually, there's nothing special here. So why have we not taken this step before?
Yeah, but for this, what Bala just asked, I think this would also be a nice exercise, because the IP process from the Eclipse Foundation is very open. Yes, you can read everything in the internet, and also their license blacklists or denial lists, sorry, and all their interpretations are there, so that you can really see then on that point, okay, now this is Eclipse specific and that is generic. Yeah. So if you want to have a complete picture, because none of our companies would probably share that. Yeah, but you would be interested in learning now how would a complete picture look like. Then you could perhaps use that Eclipse or Apache or whatever other foundation that does that exercise publicly. Yeah.
Okay, so today we had a good extensive presentations and discussions. That's it from my side. I'll ensure that the Excel sheet is present by end of this week, and I'll send out invites from 4th of Jan. Is that fine, or do we push it a little further?
I think 4th of January is probably a bit on the early side because different places take different sort of holidays. I'm just wondering whether it would not make more sense to start the following week.
11th sounds good. Yeah, sure.
Okay, 11th sounds good. Yes.
Because different people celebrate slightly different times, so it might be just easier to give people a slightly longer break.
It's a good point. We just had a conversation with Malcolm in Spain, and he said that on the first week of January, they'll be doing a lot of events for the Spanish families.
That's right. The 6th of January is more critical in certain countries.
Personally, I think OpenChain should adopt all holidays, and if we can pull that off, we might not actually work anymore.
Probably you might work 5 days a year.
Do we have like Russians in the group at all? Because normally they have the first week of Jan off, or even.
We do. We've got people from Yandex monitoring this list and others.
And by the way, then Shane, is OpenChain then still hiring if you apply?
Oh, do the full? Yeah, absolutely. If you can help me get the budget, we're going to do it.
Can I apply?
Yeah, everyone apply.
Yeah, if you're adopting all the leaves of all the festivals, yes, all of us are going to apply.
Yeah.
All we need is Jeff Bezos when he's drunk, and we'll be fine.
Okay, so I'll send out the invites from 11th again.
Thank you. Bye, Krishna.
Marvelous.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Have a wonderful day.
Thank you all.
Bye. Have a good
wonderful week.
break, everyone. Bye.
You too.
Holidays.
Take
Bye-bye.
care.
Bye.